I've brought you a gift.
What is it?
It's a crystal. Nothing more. But if you turn it this way, look into it, it'll show you your dreams.
Let's talk about eco-socialism. Now, I think it's pretty clear that we are heading towards a climate crisis by the end of the century, so we need to know how to tackle that if we don't want to end up in eco-fascism with people starving to death in the name of the environment. And no, we don't need to suffer to a great extent. As our production has gone up and we started to dominate nature completely, we started to create rifts in its natural processes which regulate the amount of elements, the proportion of elements that are present in Earth. And those cycles, by the way, make human life sustainable. The more rifts in those cycles we create, the faster we accelerate towards a new geological epoch. Now, as we become one with the commodity in a world of consumerism, we contribute to our own depression and pave our way to this new geological epoch. And this is where eco-socialism comes in. It basically argues that capitalism in the private market sector has no ways to stop that from happening and things from getting worse. That's why we see a lot of capitalist ideologues looking towards Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who head to another planet instead of saving our environment like actual human beings. Now, because markets operate on competition to see which capitalist can generate the most profits, we have something like 85% of the American economy that is powered by fossil fuels, which are the least expensive option for corporations to use while still turning a profit. It's easy to see how that works. If we have two capitalists competing against each other to make a profit, say capitalist A and B, and A switches to green energy, A is going to lose competition, have a smaller profit margin compared to capitalist B. Therefore, capitalist B will have a competitive advantage over capitalist A, solely because he uses cleaner energy, as it's more expensive. Now, corporations will always try to maximize their profit margin regardless of what they do, on that path destroying the environment. And it's incredible how many resources are wasted to fuel capitalism. The best way to tackle this is to plan production. Rather than have market system dictate production, have actual scientists and workers, engineers, and people who actually know what they're doing, instead of a board of directors who just want to turn on a higher profit margin. The most important part where we should do that is in the energy sector. Planning it and gradually reallocating jobs from fossil fuels to clean energy so people don't lose their jobs, but quickly enough so the environment can still be saved. We still have a production of goods, services, and commodities, but in a way that's harmonious with nature. And there's a lot of industries we can nationalize too, like housing, which would create lots of better environments for people to live under. So yeah, consumerism in the current state of a society has a lot of things to do with the depression we live in. So eco-socialism would also be a great way to fix these issues, all the while addressing climate change issues.
Something that shouldn't exist in America, cash bail. Why should wealth determine whether or not someone has to await trial behind bars? Initially, American colonies used England's system of personal sureties in which people accused of a bailable offense would promise to pay their debt, and a family member would be on the hook for the debt if for some reason it was not paid. But by the early 20th century, people were less willing to stand in for others' debts, and so the courts began to put the financial burden solely on the accused and required payment before release. So arresting and jailing people became a big business. Today, research shows that around 74% of people who are held in jail have not been convicted of a crime, and of these, 90% do not have the resources to pay bail and could therefore spend years in jail waiting trial. Meanwhile, wealthy people get to sleep in the warmth of their own beds simply because they can afford it. But being able to afford bail doesn't somehow make you innocent, just like not being able to afford bail doesn't somehow make you guilty. The cash bail system is not about keeping citizens safe or keeping criminals off the streets. It's about criminalizing poverty. And in a country where Black, Indigenous, and other people of color are more likely to be impoverished due to centuries of institutional racism, cash bail is also inherently racist and continues to promote a two-tiered justice system.
Indigenous technologies are some of the most advanced in the world, and I'm going to tell you why. For tens of thousands of years, indigenous nations all across Turtle Island kept Turtle Island in pristine condition. Where people had complicated trade networks all the way from the east coast to the west coast. Found a way to travel across Turtle Island without cutting roads through the forests, and without having to disturb the other beings who lived there. We knew how to use the waterways to paddle and portage and travel the rivers. We know these trade networks happen because it's the reason you can find abalone shell coming from the west coast and finding them in communities in the east coast. Why we can find beadwork and pottery from the south found in communities up north. Indigenous communities knew how to harvest animals in the forest without disturbing the other beings around them. Didn't have to fire off a big loud gun disturbing all the birds in order to harvest an animal. The idea that Western technology is superior and more advanced to Indigenous is just a misconception, as I believe the most advanced technologies are the sustainable ones. To see a green future, we have to listen to Indigenous peoples.
Oklahoma is going nuts this week trying to enforce anti-transgender policy. Students at Woodall Public School District were sent home this week with a biological sex affidavit. Any student that plays any sport at any age must fill out this form under penalty of law. Parents must take this form and fill in a box that says whether they were male or female at the time of their birth. Then they've got to go and get the form notarized, making it a crime to lie on them. Lastly, schools will keep this form on file and keep a record of all students' biological sex. This is horrifying. The fact that it needs to be notarized adds a criminal element to any transgender student wanting to stay stealth. This also absolutely excludes intersex people. Schools then have to keep this form on record, keeping a record of the biological birth sex of all of their students. I can't possibly imagine how this could go wrong or be misused.
How decentralizing, decommodifying, and decolonizing our food supply can lead to a revolution. First thing is to create an emergency supply of food. 2 weeks of shelf-stable food should be good. With late-stage capitalism and global supply chains crumbling, it's good to be prepared. Next is to pool your resources together with a group of friends or neighbors. Sharing really is caring, and it helps to build community preparedness and skills when it comes to organizing. Next, start gardening and growing your own food. You can start a food forest, a guerrilla garden, or maybe an indoor garden. Listen to indigenous communities and decolonize your diet. Indigenous communities have thousands of years of knowledge when it comes to farming, so why not learn from the best? And all the information will be local to your area. Then organize, garden, and farm as a community. Expand your group of small community gardens, guerrilla gardens, and food co-ops to larger groups. And so much more can happen just from planting seeds. And you can read the full article on my Substack.
And he is a purebred Haitian man. You know how I love him purebred. None of that mixing.
Remember when I said that race is a form of visual communications and people got mad? This is the shit that I mean. Is this trend cringy no matter who does it? Absolutely. But don't you all feel the tone changes when a black woman does this trend with her black boyfriend rather than a white woman doing this trend with her black boyfriend? That's what I meant. Y'all can't get into every trend. You're gonna get your feelings hurt.
Number one, hi, happy Sunday. I'm taking my boyfriend out for his birthday today, so that's why I'm dressed somewhat decently for once. But you may have seen on TikTok that there's this series that's been popping up here and there, Jokes for Avi, which shows an autistic woman and her presumably neurotypical husband, and there's a lot of people commenting on these videos talking about how cringe they are and to check the husband's hard drive and shit like that. And I just want to make it very clear, if you claim to support autistic people and you're saying shit like that, you don't, and you're being ableist. Look, you can say all day that it's about, oh, she's acting like a child and he's attracted to it. Ew, disgusting. If you're looking at an autistic person behaving the way that they normally do without masking, and you're saying that that's childish, you are infantilizing autistic people, and you are, in fact, being ableist. And you know what? Tell me I'm being in a fucking echo chamber for this, but I'm not arguing with anybody about this. I mask every single day of my life because I don't want to be judged like that. You're not funny, and you're not fucking quirky. Get the fuck over yourself.
In today's Cool Trans People from History, have you heard of the woman who fooled the West? The anti-trans headlines were strong even back in the day. Look at that. Charlie Parkhurst was a legendary 6-horse stagecoach driver, described as short and stocky, a whiskey drinker, cigar smoker, tobacco chewer, who wore a black eye patch after being kicked in the left eye by a horse. Although assigned female at birth, named Charlotte, Charlie presented as male to be able to work as a logger, farmer and rancher. He even registered to vote in 1868, over 50 years before women's suffrage. Following Charlie's death, it was discovered that his body was not male, and the press immediately started printing about the escapades of his life, with headlines, 30 years in disguise and the woman who fooled the West.
Danse, what's up everybody? I just wanted to say this message again. You know, whether you're a light skin or a dark skin native, you're still indigenous. Whether you grew up inside or outside of your community, you're still indigenous. And whether you grew up with traditional teachings, ceremony, or not, you're still indigenous. And nothing could ever take that away from you. And it's just important to remember as well that, you know, we're all on a healing journey right now. We're all on a journey where we are learning and we need to educate each other in a good way and to do it with love so that we can all move forward as a community in a good way. Because, you know, even though we're from many different nations, we all come from that two-legged nation. We're all from that same nation, and, you know, we come from the same tree. So
So capitalism is a system that's predicated on endless growth. But growth is not inherently good. It's quite a neutral phenomena. So capitalism needs to construct artificial constraints to ensure that growth is universally considered a positive thing. Take jobs, for example. Everyone wants to say that they've created new jobs. But creating new jobs in and of itself is not necessarily inherently good and is in fact at sometimes a policy failure. Jobs are considered good because it's how people take care of themselves. It's how you survive in this society. So by creating more jobs, hypothetically, more people should be able to take care of themselves. Along comes the problem of technology, because when technology gets better and better, so does productivity. When productivity goes up, you can put in less to get the same output. You don't need as many jobs because a smaller number of workers can do the same job as efficiently, if not more. So over time, the percentage of people that are actually needed to run society dwindles. Now, there's a point in production when you reach something that I like to call maximum efficiency. What that describes is a point where you are most productive in creating the exact output that you want. Because overproduction to the point of wastefulness is not efficient. Now, as technology continues, like I said, that point of maximum efficiency continues to require less and less people. But the thing about capitalism is that it's not a rational system. Because everyone else is still operating on the premise that you need to work to survive. You can't just give people stuff because it ultimately lowers its value, you don't make as much profit, and you expose the hole in capitalist logic, which is that I don't need to do this stupid job. This is where artificial scarcity comes in. If you make enough for everybody, but not everyone can afford what you make, then the leftovers that don't get purchased have to be thrown out. And the industries where this is most easy to spot, like food, medicine, fashion, is also the industries that are most egregiously overproducing. Everybody wants record productivity and record profits at the same time, but you can't have those both without sacrificing efficiency. Which brings us to America and late capitalism, in which most of our productive capabilities have been shipped overseas to labor that is both cheaper and you can work harder. Because those jobs have been shipped overseas, we need to make up jobs to justify the existence of the bulk of the working class. This is why we overproduce food but still can't feed everyone, and why there's more empty houses than homeless people.
I know the white folks that ain't racist is stressed.
Alright, this is my third time trying to record this because yes, we are genuinely very stressed and it is something that is very hard to unpack. As someone who is a white man, and yes, I know that is very redundant to say, but yes, it is as someone who was raised in a obviously probably right-wing conservative household, just like anyone else with a nose piercing, yes, there's a lot of unpacking and a lot of systematic oppression and generational trauma and racism that we have to get to the nitty-gritty bottom to, because if we don't, we're never going to fight this issue and combat it and find a solution. The fact of the matter is that most white men were not held accountable enough for the slurs that we say around each other. I had white friends. I'd be surrounded by white kids around my school who would be saying the N-word, and they'd be saying this, that, and the third, and they'd be saying these racist jokes. And you don't want to be the guy who's too PC, too liberal at the alt-right fucking school, so you got to fucking keep your mouth shut. And it sucks. You're in this constant battle. You feel like, well, if I'm not as racist as these guys, I'm not as racist as my dad, I'm not as racist as my grandpa, that makes me okay, right? Well, you're wrong. I used to even go as far as to tell my girlfriend whenever she'd stand against people who were saying slurs around her, she would go off on them, and I'd tell her, this ain't our fight, and I was wrong for that. It is our fight. All lives do not matter at all if black lives don't matter. And if we don't fucking acknowledge how much weight that has behind that saying, if we don't understand the nuances behind it, we are going to fail every time at helping our brothers and sisters who are in desperate need right now. And if I have any way to help with my platform or anything, I genuinely want to, because not out of white guilt, but because I love people, and I'm so fucking tired of seeing people cry over something that people who share just the same genome as me have done to them, and things I've done and not done, the things I haven't done to stop this shit. It's just, it's deep. It's nuanced, it's complex. We are raised by racists who are raised and parented by more racists. This whole country was built on racist ideals, and it's just so hard to deconstruct something like that when it's so deeply rooted in how our worldview is shaped for us in our upbringing as white people. I was not held accountable enough for the things I did and said as a youngster, and so it really haunted me in my later years, finding out that I was in fact being racist to people without even realizing it. I wouldn't even go as far as to say slurs. I would just have points of view or certain things that were so skewed or augmented through my white guilt lens and my white supremacy lens that we all have. It is integrated in white people. I'm sorry to say, but if you are a white person, you are inherently racist. It is not because you were born racist. It's because you were raised by racists who were raised by racists, as I said before. It is tough. You got a lot of generational trauma to unpack, and a lot of people you got to cut off out of your life if you want to have solidarity with the people who really need your help. This is probably going to need a part 2. I love you guys.
If you care about climate change, you should care about the threat of nuclear weapons. First of all, you should care about the millions of lives that could be lost in a nuclear war. But the other impacts cannot be understated, and nuclear weapons have disproportionately impacted my people, the Navajo Nation. Companies blasted 4 million tons of uranium out of Navajo land between 1944 and 1986. In that time period, my mom, uncles, aunts, and grandparents lived there. My grandmother lost her kidney due to the mining. Navajo Nation is around the size of West Virginia and home to more than 250,000 people, including my grandparents. To this day, the Navajo Nation is still suffering from the uranium extraction used to build America's nuclear arsenal in the form of higher cancer rates, birth defects, and lack of clean drinking water. 1 out of 3 members on the Navajo reservation do not have access to clean drinking water. The impact cannot be understated. Right now, diplomats are gathering at the UN to discuss nuclear disarmament. I'm using my voice to protect Shikaya, my land, and my people. Please share and help spread the word.
First time. Also, look at Jessica's tattoo of her guinea pig. His name is Jamal.
That video that I posted yesterday has really got me thinking, and I feel like this is something that I've always realized but never really realized. The name is the punchline. The name is the punchline. The same thing with the dog. The name, the little chihuahua named Taco, is the punchline. That's what's supposed to be funny. Who's laughing? Let me just set you up real quick. Hold on. This lighter's name is Tabitha. This lighter's name is Abigail. It's not funny. And on top of that, you're giving for like why? What's funny about a hamster tattoo named Jamal? Do you like the name Jamal? Are you gonna name your kids Jamal? No, because you think it's funny. And I'm asking you, what's funny? Not just to this creator, but like in general, what's funny? So I'm in cosmetology and I have a mannequin head. Her name's Shaniqua. Y'all really gotta start thinking. Okay, this is the last video that I'm gonna make, and I just really want y'all to hear me. Like, just listen for a second, please. Don't go into it thinking anything, just listen. Did I ever say human names are not funny for pets? If I did, find the clip, tag me in it, find the quote. My dog's name is Francine Lydia. My other dog's name is Jasmine Picolia. I didn't get to name Jasmine, her name was gonna be Lottie Picolia. Human names for pets are funny, okay? Human names for pets are funny. But what we're not going to do is sit here and act like Daquan, Tyrone, Jamal, Jerome, Keisha, like all these names haven't been used as the punchline of jokes. Would you like an example? Okay. I know for a fact y'all remember this. I know for a fact y'all remember this. The thing is, people have been bringing up this like quote in this creator. Do y'all see what he is dressed up as? White dudes. You're bringing up this quote like you're really doing something. Would you look at that? Jamal being the butt of the joke. Would you look at that? Tyrone being the butt of the joke. All I want to know is, what is funny about these stereotypical black names that you're giving your animals, your X, Y, and Z's, your this, that, and the third? What is funny? Naming a hamster Theodore? That's funny. That's why is your hamster named Theodore? That's a little strange. Coming from my point of view, I don't know if you know what I am. Coming from my point of view, hearing white people name these animals either after dishes of certain cultures or naming them after names that come from certain cultures is a little bit crazy to me. That's all I'm saying. Name your pet's human names. It is hilarious. Someone said that their pet's name was Trapper Keeper. That is hilarious. But what is funny about my hamster's name is Jamal? That's what I want to know. I don't think I really heard that. So one more time, let's not act like these names aren't tied to the butt of the joke that is also tied to black people. Do you understand me? Are we clear? Claro que sí.
Is it sustainable or is it greenwashing? We're covering Sprite. You may have seen the news circling that Sprite is changing the color of their green bottles to clear plastic, and the claim is for environmental reasons. The thought here is that clear plastic is easier to recycle, but let me break it down for you. While colored plastic does get separated from clear plastic in a recycling facility for recycling purposes, all plastic is hard to truly recycle. In 2018, the EPA released that only 29.1% of PET bottles and jars were actually recycled, and that's in the United States. Not to mention the bottles are still plastic that they're switching to. Other than the fact that they're changing the color of their bottle from these bright neon green bottles that you can see in this photo, there is no other evidence to support that they are doing anything else to reduce the amount of plastic that ends up polluting this earth. To me, this feels like greenwashing. What do you think? And follow for more.
So this is the National Low Income Housing Coalition website. It'll show you the 2-bedroom housing wage by zip code. You can put your zip code in right here. And then, because I didn't want to give you my exact zip code, you can look at the area and see how much you would need to earn per hour in order to afford a 2-bedroom housing rental. So once you pull that up and you look at these numbers, then you can scream really loud, say fuck capitalism, and join me here.
Something I think about all the time is the way that single income households used to be the norm. If you look back 50, 60, 70 years ago, the typical domestic household dynamic was to have one adult who went out into the world and earned an income, and to have another adult who did not do that, but instead took care of all of the upkeep, logistics, chores, etc. that go into having a place to live and being a functioning adult in society. Now, I understand that that division of paid and unpaid labor was and still usually is drawn along the same patriarchal and misogynistic lines that are baked into the nuclear family structure, but I think about it nonetheless because it tells us two very interesting and frustrating things. The first being that not everyone needs to have what we would currently consider gainful employment. There used to be a huge segment of society that was not, technically speaking, part of the workforce, and the economy chugged along just fine. All of the things that needed to get made got made. All of the stuff that needed to get done still got done. A big part of why we think we have a labor shortage today is because there is a disconnect between labor and what needs to be done for society. We no longer work to do what needs to be done. We work to turn a profit for the ruling class. The second reason I think about this, though, and this is the one that's really been resonating with me lately, is because it shows us just how much work is involved in existing as a human person in society that is not a part of having a job. There is so much genuine labor involved there that it used to be a full-time job for half of the typical household. And these days, we discount it almost entirely because it's not profitable. The slogan for the 8-hour workday was 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what you will. But these days it feels a lot more like 8 hours for work, 8 hours to split between rest and having a social life, and 8 hours for getting groceries, making food, going to the doctor's appointment, scheduling the dentist's appointment, doing your correspondence, making any sort of plans for the future, etc., etc. It's just exhausting. And honestly, it's the main reason I have not posted anything on this app for the last couple weeks, because I just have not had the time or energy to put into making content like I would like to. Now, fortunately, I think things are clearing up for me, and I'm going to try to be back more in the future, but I'm also going to do my best to remember that we are never going to see the changes we want to see if we all keep burning out along the way.
Of course, an hour before I'm supposed to have an interview with Chicago Public Schools, I get this article on my feed. Amazing. I mean, it's not like the position I am interviewing for literally pays minimum wage, and they had to assure me that that comes from the district. It's not their decision. Check it out, there's my state. The Illinois Association of Regional School Superintendents found that 88% of school districts statewide, not just in Chicago, are having problems with teacher shortages. This is my favorite bit of the article. In Wisconsin's Madison School District, Superintendent Jenkins said that a month away from the start of school on September 1st, they're still working to fill 199 teacher vacancies and 124 non-teaching positions. But don't worry. They hired 269 qualified substitute teachers. And also, he said, initial enticements will include some immediate supplies. Every teacher likes their calendar, right? So we're providing calendars, little things for them. And this is what happens when you gut your teachers' unions.